Pentagon failed its sixth audit in a row. I think there's a misalignment between clear and transparent side and then the reality of the fact that you're dealing with crazy amounts of property all over the world. So one of the things it talked about is last year, the Pentagon couldn't account for 61% of its $3.5 trillion in assets. And that figure increased this year to 63% of its now $3.8 trillion in assets. And what's interesting about this, military contractors are actually the ones that hold most of these assets, and the Pentagon doesn't even know where they are. So a lot of what happens is that they will create parts or they'll put in a request for more parts that they already own, but they don't know where they are. So they're misplacing these parts. They gave an example here about the F-35. The Pentagon owns a huge pool of spare parts, but they just don't know where they are. All that leads to is them trying to recreate these parts, overproducing. And I think their example here is that $220 billion just lost in the ether, and they don't know where they are. Which connects in my mind to this whole goal that Elon has of being the Department of Government Efficiency. This seems like a great place to dial in on some of the spending.
I couldn't agree more with mention about Elon. And if nobody knows, there's a joke right now. Well, it's not really a joke. It's kind of serious, actually. It's the Doge coin that he's pushed, the cryptocurrency coin. And then he's like, well, why don't we make this stand for what you just said? Department of, what is it?
Government Efficiency, Doge.
Yeah. The Department of Government Efficiency. If Elon went into the DoD and made them actually pass an audit or cleaned up their act to actually operate efficiently, I think it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Like, you're a fan of that. Who doesn't want a government office to be more efficient? Going back to the report really quickly, if you want to look at this report, it's very informational. And I don't want to be like a conspiracy theorist that the Pentagon's hiding things or whatnot. I think personally, it's just this bureaucratic machine that's gotten out of control over the past several decades. And the best way to, I guess, compare it on a very small scale and going back to the home finances is that let's pretend you have a basement in your house and you go to Costco every 2 months and get supplies, and you have an annual budget of how much you can pay for your toilet paper and your paper towels and your whatever, your Windex and all the stuff that you need in your house. I guess best way to explain it is the Pentagon has this basement, and in certain corners of the basement, there's like extra paper towels that they don't know about. So the next time they go to Costco, they buy too much paper towels. Now, in a house,
you have to think of it like they have like 10,000 basements.
Right. But not only that,
all
so
disconnected.
In the house, you're like, in your own house, you're like, oh, no big deal. I'll just use the paper towels. I won't buy them next time. The problem with the Pentagon is a lot of this stuff, it's expired, or they buy it and then it sits somewhere and then it becomes outdated and was never used. So the inefficiency there is not totally comparable to total apples and oranges comparison. But I just want to make it clear that the conspiracy that Pentagon's trying to like spend all this money, I think it's just a symptom of over too much bureaucracy and just too much crap going on. So we need a total overhaul of everything in the government, and the Pentagon's a perfect example of that. All of that said, again, as an investor, you look at their budget, they have $4 trillion of assets. Trillion's one of those numbers that you can't quantify. You're like, oh, trillion's more than a billion, but it's not just like a couple billion. You know, it's such a huge number that your brain just explodes. So to understand what the budget is of the DoD and what kind of investing and business opportunities there, it's blue sky opportunity. It's so big, it's hard to understand.